I used to think kids were dramatic. Not in a cruel way, just the quiet, adult kind of amusement. The kind where you nod along while secretly thinking, it's just a shadow, just a bad dream. You'll grow out of it. My daughter Lily was 9. Imaginative, sensitive, always noticing things I missed. Sounds in the hallway, faces in crowds. The feeling of being watched. I chalked it up to too many cartoons and not enough sleep. That belief died on a Saturday afternoon in a Target outside Des Moines, Iowa. We were supposed to be having a good day. Just us. No school, no work. New sneakers because Lily's feet refused to stop growing. She'd chosen them, herself white with blue laces twirling in the aisle like the world was safe. We were walking toward the checkout when Lily stopped so suddenly I almost collided with her. "Mom," she whispered, her fingers sliding into mine cold and tight. "I need the bathroom. Now." Her voice wasn't whining. It wasn't urgent in the normal kid way. It was flat, controlled, like fear wrapped in duct tape. Inside the women's restroom, she didn't head for the sinks. She pulled me straight into a stall and locked it. Then she climbed onto the toilet seat and leaned down so her mouth was next to my ear. "Don't move," she whispered. "Look." I bent down. Through the gap beneath the stall door, I saw shoes. Men's shoes. Black. Polished. Too clean for a public bathroom. They stopped. Then I heard a man's voice, slow, calm, talking softly like he wasn't standing in a women's restroom. "Yeah," he said into his phone. "Single mom. Child's about 9. Blue sneakers. Blue laces." My stomach dropped so hard it felt like my body forgot how gravity worked. Lily's nails dug into my wrist. "I told you," she breathed. He followed us from the parking lot. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I froze. The shoes moved. One slow step, then another, stopping in front of each stall like he had all the time in the world. Like we were items on a list. My heart slammed against my ribs, loud enough I was sure he could hear it. Lily pressed a finger to her lips, eyes wide, steady in a way no child should have to be. That was the moment I understood something terrible. This wasn't fear. This was instinct. And my daughter had been right long before I was willing to listen. The shoes stopped directly in front of our stall. Lily's breathing vanished. Not slowed, gone. Like she'd turned herself into furniture. I could see the man's shadow stretch under the door. He shifted his weight, leather creaking softly. Somewhere near the sinks, a hand dryer roared to life, then died again, plunging the room back into a thick, humming silence. My brain finally caught up enough to function. Document. Don't react. I slid my phone out of my pocket millimeter by millimeter, praying the faint rustle of fabric wouldn't betray us. My hands were shaking so badly the camera app took 3 tries to open. I hit record and angled it down toward the gap. The shoes moved again. One stall down. Pause. Another stall. He was checking. Should have come this way. The man murmured into his phone, irritation slipping through the calm. "They're close. Close." My mouth went dry. Lily leaned her forehead against my shoulder. I felt her trembling now, deep and silent, like she was afraid sound itself might summon him. I dialed 911 without lifting the phone to my ear. "Yes?" The dispatcher answered. "Women's restroom," I whispered. "Target on Maple Avenue. There's a man inside." He followed my daughter. "He's searching stalls." "Are you safe right now?" "No." "How old is the child?" 9. The dispatcher's voice sharpened. "Stay where you are. Officers are en route. Can you safely exit?" Before I could answer, the shoes shifted again, closer this time. Right in front of us. The stall door rattled lightly. Not enough to open it. Enough to test it. Lily flinched. Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not heroically, but with cold precision. I grabbed Lily, unlocked the door, and bolted. We burst out of the stall as the man turned, surprise flickering across his face for half a second too long. He was mid-40s, clean cut, wearing a charcoal jacket like he belonged in an office, not a bathroom. We ran, past the sinks, past a woman washing her hands who gasped as we flew by, out into the blinding fluorescent lights of the store. Lily's sneakers slapping against the floor, blue laces a blur. I didn't stop until we reached customer service. "There's a man," I said, breathless, "in the women's restroom." He followed my child. The employee blinked, clearly filing this under people are weird. Then Lily spoke. "He knew my shoes," she said quietly. "He said my shoes. That did it." Security was called. Police sirens wailed somewhere outside, growing louder. I played the recording on my phone for the guard when he arrived. The man's calm voice filled the desk area. Single mom, blue laces. The guard's face changed. That's not okay, he said. On the cameras, we watched a man exit the restroom and walk casually toward the electronics section, like nothing had happened, like he wasn't hunting a child moments earlier. And that's when Lily whispered something that made my blood run ice cold. Mom, she said, staring at the screen. I've seen him before. My heart stuttered. Where? I asked, keeping my voice calm even as every muscle in my body locked tight. Lily didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed glued to the security monitor as the man paused near a display of tablets, casually scrolling on his phone like he wasn't being watched. Outside our apartment, she said finally, by the mailboxes, and once near my school. The room felt smaller. The security guard straightened. School? He repeated. I nodded, even though my stomach was flipping. She rides the bus. Same stop every morning. Lily shook her head. Not just that. He waved once. Her voice dropped. Like he knew me. The guard grabbed his radio, his tone sharp now. We have a possible stalking situation. Adult male. Camera equipment. Child involved. Police arrived within minutes. 2 officers, one older, one younger. The younger one crouched to Lily's level, his voice soft, practiced. Can you tell me what you saw today? He asked. She did. Calmly. Too calmly. She described the shoes, the camera, the way the man spoke without raising his voice. She told them how he'd been near our building before, how he always seemed to appear when she was alone for a moment. The older officer's jaw tightened. This isn't random, he said to me quietly. Has anyone been asking questions about you? Your schedule? Your child? I thought of my ex-husband's mother. Margaret had always called it concern. You work too much. Lily needs structure. Children need consistency. I swallowed. Yes. Before I could explain, the guard's radio crackled. We've got him. Electronics aisle. He's cooperating. Cooperating. They brought him to the office. Up close, he smelled like cologne and confidence. He didn't look at Lily. He didn't need to. Brian Keller, he said smoothly. Licensed private investigator. The officers exchanged a look. What were you investigating? One asked. I can't disclose that, Keller replied. Client confidentiality. The younger officer leaned in. You followed a child into a women's restroom. Keller shrugged. I lost visual contact. I was confirming location. Confirming location. I felt my hands curl into fists. Who hired you? The older officer asked. Keller hesitated just a fraction too long. A concerned family member, he said. Grandmother. The room went silent. Lily looked up at me. Grandma Maggie? She asked. I closed my eyes. The pieces slammed together with sickening clarity. The questions, the schedules, the comments about my long shifts, the way Margaret always seemed to know where we'd been. This wasn't love. Keller was escorted out. Statements were taken. A report was filed. CPS was mentioned because of course it was. As we walked to the car, Lily climbed into her seat and buckled herself in carefully, like she was suddenly much older. Mom? She asked. Yes, baby. She's been watching us for a long time, hasn't she? I started the engine, hands shaking. Yes, I said. And now she's going to regret it. I didn't drive home. Instead, I drove past our exit, past the grocery store, past the park Lily loved, until the road curved toward the river. My hands were steady on the wheel now, not calm, but focused in the way you get right before surgery. Lily watched the water through the window. Are we in trouble? She asked. No, I said immediately. We're safe. It wasn't a lie. Not anymore. Because now I knew what we were up against. That night, after Lily fell asleep clutching her stuffed rabbit, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I made a list. Dates Margaret had checked in. Questions she'd asked that felt too specific. Comments about my parenting, my hours, my fatigue. It read like a deposition. At 9:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. Margaret, just heard there was a scare at Target. Is Lily okay? I stared at the screen. She knew. Before I told anyone, I typed back slowly. We're fine. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. You know I worry, she wrote. A little girl needs protection, especially with you working so much. That's when anger finally showed itself, not hot, not loud, but sharp. The kind that clears your vision. I screenshot everything. The next morning, I took the day off work and drove to the school. I spoke to the principal, the counselor, the front desk staff. I showed them the police report number. I added names to the pickup list and removed others. Margaret's name came off. At lunch, my phone rang. I was just trying to help, she said, voice trembling perfectly. You don't understand how scared I am of losing her. You don't get to lose what isn't yours, I replied. Silence. Then her voice hardened. You're overreacting. That word. The same one I'd used on Lily. That afternoon, a detective called. We pulled Keller's files, he said. He's been documenting your routine for weeks. Weeks. Photos of Lily's bus stop. Notes about my shifts. Timestamps of when our apartment lights went off. This was preparation, the detective continued, for a custody claim. I thanked him and hung up. Then I did something Margaret never expected. I called a lawyer, not to defend myself, to go on offense. By evening, Lily and I were back home. I tucked her into bed and kissed her forehead. Mom? She asked. Are we going to be okay? I brushed her hair back. Yes, I said, because now I'm listening. Down the hall, my phone lit up again. Margaret, I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe. I smiled for the first time in 2 days, because so would I. And unlike her, I wasn't pretending. Revenge doesn't always start with confrontation. Sometimes it starts with paperwork. My lawyer, Denise Harper, had the kind of calm voice that made chaos behave. She listened without interrupting as I laid everything out: the PI, the bathroom, the photos, the messages, the way Margaret always framed control as concern. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. She didn't just cross a line, Denise said. She sprinted past it. We met the next morning. I brought coffee. Denise brought a legal pad already filled with notes. First, she said, tapping her pen, we logged down your child. Emergency protective order. Temporary. Fast. And Margaret? I asked. Denise's smile was thin. We let her talk. By noon, the order was filed. By evening, it was granted. Margaret was not to contact Lily. Not directly. Not through others. Not through help. At 7:18 p.m., my phone rang anyway. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was a masterpiece of performance. Crying. Fear. Love. I only want what's best. I saved it. The next day, Denise did something brilliant. She requested discovery. Keller's files. His invoices. His emails. Every receipt Margaret thought was invisible. What came back was worse than I imagined. Margaret had provided my work schedule, my building layout, Lily's school calendar. She'd labeled them risk factors. There were notes suggesting I was emotionally compromised after my divorce, suggestions to observe mother's reactions under stress. She was building a case, so we built one back. Denise contacted CPS not to invite scrutiny, but to control the narrative. I welcomed the visit. Open doors. Clean home. Lily's room filled with art and books and sunlight. The caseworker smiled. She's safe here, she said simply. I sent that sentence to Denise in a text. She replied with a fire emoji. That weekend, Margaret showed up anyway. Not at the door. At church. Lily froze when she saw her across the aisle. I felt her body tense against mine. Margaret smiled, slow and sad, like a saint in a painting. I stood, loud enough for others to hear. I said, "You're not allowed near my child." The room went quiet. Margaret's face flickered. Then she laughed softly. "You're being dramatic." The pastor stepped forward, confused. Denise had warned me this might happen. I pulled out my phone and read the order. Margaret's smile collapsed. She left without another word. That night, Lily asked, "Is Grandma mad at you?" "No," I said. "She's mad she got caught." Denise called the next morning. "We're ready," she said. "Court's in 2 weeks. And Margaret has no idea what's coming." I looked at Lily eating cereal at the counter, humming softly like the world was slowly healing. "Good," I said. Neither did I. Court didn't feel dramatic. No gavels slamming. No shouting. Just fluorescent lights and the quiet, grinding sound of consequences warming up. Margaret arrived early, dressed in soft gray like she was auditioning for sympathy. Her lawyer, a polished man with silver hair, smiled at me as if we were discussing brunch plans instead of custody. Lily wasn't there. Denise had insisted. Children don't belong in adult wars. I sat straight, hands folded, heart steady. Margaret cried on cue. She spoke about love, about fear, about how I was overwhelmed and stretched too thin. She never used the word unfit. She didn't need to. She let implication do the work. Then Denise stood. Let's talk about concern, she said calmly, and how it differs from surveillance. She introduced Keller's invoices, each one itemized, dates, times, locations. The judge leaned forward. Denise played the audio from the Target bathroom. The calm male voice filled the room. Blue laces. Margaret's lawyer shifted. Then came the photos. My stomach twisted seeing them enlarged. Me and Lily at the park, at the bus stop, laughing, unaware. This, Denise said, was not a wellness check. This was an operation. Margaret shook her head, whispering no. Denise didn't stop. She introduced text messages, emails, notes Margaret had written herself. Mother emotionally unstable after divorce. Child vulnerable to influence. Grandmother prepared to provide structure. The judge's expression hardened. Finally, Denise asked the question that ended it. Mrs. Whitmore, she said, why did you not request a welfare check? Why a private investigator? Why a man with a camera in a women's restroom? Margaret opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The judge spoke. You don't get to weaponize fear, he said quietly, and you certainly don't get to endanger a child to prove a point. Custody was never in question, but control was. The ruling came fast. Protective order extended, all contacts supervised, mandatory counseling, and a formal warning that further action would result in criminal charges. Margaret didn't look at me as she left. She looked smaller. Outside, Denise exhaled. You did good. I nodded, but something still sat heavy in my chest. That night, Lily asked, did we win? I thought about Margaret's face in court, about the quiet devastation of consequences. We're safe, I said. That's better than winning. Lily smiled, then frowned. She won't watch us anymore, right? I knelt in front of her. No, I said firmly. No one ever will again. Because I had learned something. Monsters don't hide under beds. They hide behind concern. I thought the hardest part was over. I was wrong. Safety doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in slowly, while your body is still braced for impact. For weeks after court, I woke up at a.m. convinced I'd heard footsteps outside our door. I checked the locks twice, sometimes 3 times. Lily noticed. Mom, she said one night as I tucked her in, you don't sleep anymore. I smiled and lied. I do. But kids read the truth in posture, not words. Her school counselor suggested therapy. I agreed immediately. Not because Lily was broken, but because something had been taken from her that deserved careful handling. At the first session, the therapist asked Lily what made her feel safe. She thought for a long moment. When Mom listens, she said, that hit harder than court ever did. Meanwhile, Margaret didn't disappear. She adapted. The supervised calls began once a week, exactly 15 minutes. A caseworker sat in the room, clipboard ready. Margaret behaved like a model grandmother. Compliments, gentle questions, soft laughter. But Lily came home quiet every time. She asks if I miss her more than you, Lily whispered after one call, and if I wish I lived in a house where someone is always home. I documented it. Everything. Denise warned me. This is what control looks like when it's on a leash. Then the letters started. Handwritten. No threats. Just memories. Remember when I held you after your first nightmare? I know you love your mother, but I love you too. The caseworker flagged them. More notes added to the file. One afternoon, Lily asked something that broke my heart clean in half. Mom, she said carefully, is it bad that I still love Grandma? No, I said immediately. It's human. She nodded, relieved. I don't want to be bad. You don't punish children for loving people who hurt them. You teach them boundaries and hope understanding follows later. Then came the call from Denise. Margaret filed a complaint, she said. My stomach dropped. About what? About me, Denise replied calmly. She claims I'm manipulating you, that Lily is being coached. Of course she did. That night, I sat on the couch while Lily colored beside me. Mom? She asked. If someone says they're worried, how do you know if it's real? I chose my words carefully. Real worry, I said, tries to help without taking over. Fake worry wants control. She thought about that, then smiled. Then you're real worried, she said. I pulled her close. Outside, the streetlight flickered on, and somewhere, I knew Margaret was still watching, not with cameras, not with investigators, but with resentment. And resentment is patient. The break came from an unexpected place. My phone buzzed during a night shift, one of those quiet hours where the hospital hums like it's holding its breath. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Carter?" a woman asked when I answered. "This is Helen Moore. I work for Child Services, not your caseworker, another department." My pulse quickened. "Is Lily okay?" "She's fine," Helen said quickly. "This call isn't about your daughter directly. It's about your former mother-in-law." Former. The word felt heavier than it should have. "We received a referral," Helen continued, "from another state." Another state. Margaret had told everyone she was visiting her sister, recovering. "What kind of referral?" I asked. "Pattern behavior," Helen said. "Multiple reports over the years. Not enough individually to act on, but together." She paused. "They tell a story." After my shift, I sat in my car in the parking garage, engine off, listening as Helen explained. Margaret had done this before. Not exactly this, but close. A neighbor's child she'd helped raise during a divorce. A niece she'd once tried to house permanently for stability. In each case, she positioned herself as the solution to someone else's chaos. Always subtle, always concerned, always just short of illegal. Until now. "We're reopening some older files," Helen said. "Your case gave us context." Context. That night, Lily was asleep when I got home. I stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe, thinking about how many times someone had mistaken obsession for love. The next supervised call went differently. Margaret sounded strained. "Things are very hard for me right now," she told Lily. "I may need you to tell the caseworker how much you miss me." Lily glanced at the clipboard, then at the phone. "I miss when you didn't scare Mom," she said softly. Silence. Margaret cleared her throat. "Sweetheart." The caseworker ended the call. I hugged Lily tightly afterward. "You did nothing wrong," I said. She nodded. "I just told the truth." Denise called the next day, almost laughing. "She's panicking," she said. "Her lawyer requested a delay. CPS in her sister's state is asking questions." Margaret had lost control of the narrative. That afternoon, Lily brought me a drawing. It was our apartment. The sun overhead. Two stick figures holding hands. "No shadows," she said proudly. That night, I slept through till morning for the first time in months. Because for the first time, I wasn't just reacting. The system was finally watching her. And Margaret hated being seen. Margaret unraveled quietly. No screaming voicemails. No public scenes. Just small, desperate mistakes. The kind people make when they realize the spotlight has turned on them. The first was the email. It landed in my inbox at 2:14 a.m. Subject: "Please." She wrote like a woman writing a confession disguised as love. Paragraphs about grief, about losing her son, about how Lily was the only thing keeping her heart beating. Then the slip. "I never meant for the investigator to scare her. I only wanted proof before you took her away from me forever." Proof. Before. I forwarded it to Denise without responding. Her reply came instantly. "Do not engage. This is gold." The second mistake was showing up. Not at our home. At Lily's therapy office. Margaret sat in the parking lot, engine running, waiting. A receptionist noticed her and called it in. By the time I arrived, a patrol car was already there. Margaret told the officer she got confused about the time. Confused, despite the restraining order clearly stating no unsupervised proximity. That violation triggered a review. CPS requested a full psychological evaluation. Margaret refused at first. Then she didn't, because refusal would have said too much. The evaluation took 3 weeks. In the meantime, Lily grew lighter. She laughed more, slept deeper, started leaving her bedroom door open again. One evening, while we washed dishes, she asked, "Mom, was Grandma trying to take me?" I didn't lie. "Yes," I said gently. Her hands paused in the water. "Why?" I dried my hands and knelt beside her. "Because some people don't know the difference between loving someone and owning them." She considered that. "I belong to me," she said finally. I smiled through the ache. "Exactly." Denise called on a Friday. "We got the report," she said. Margaret exhibited obsessive attachment patterns, boundary violations, and a fixation on control masked as caretaking. In other words, everything we already knew. The judge scheduled a final hearing. Margaret arrived disheveled this time. No soft gray, no careful makeup. Her lawyer looked tired. When the judge spoke, it was calm and final. All visitation is suspended, he said, effective immediately. Margaret let out a sound, half sob, half scream. I didn't feel joy. I felt relief. Outside the courthouse, Lily squeezed my hand. Is it done? She asked. I looked up at the sky, bright and clear. Yes, I said. It's finally done. But Margaret had one more card to play, and she was about to play it badly. Margaret's last move wasn't loud. It was calculated and sloppy. 3 days after the final hearing, my neighbor Valerie knocked on my door, pale and shaking. There was a woman asking questions, she said. About Lily. About your work schedule. My chest tightened. Did you recognize her? Valerie nodded slowly. David's mother. Violation. I called Denise before Valerie finished her sentence. She's spiraling, Denise said grimly, and that makes her dangerous. The police report was filed within the hour. Combined with the therapy office incident and the email confession, it triggered what Margaret feared most: loss of credibility. CPS moved fast. They opened a formal investigation into Margaret's past interactions with minors. Those old reports Helen mentioned were pulled again. This time, they weren't dismissed. Patterns don't lie when you line them up. That evening, Lily sat at the table doing homework when she looked up suddenly. Mom, she said, if someone breaks rules again and again, do they stop being family? I chose honesty over comfort. They stop being safe, I said. She nodded. Then it's okay to let go. The next morning, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. This is Detective Ruiz, the voice said. We're executing a welfare check on Margaret Whitmore. My heart pounded. Why? Because she left several messages indicating intent to retrieve what was taken from her. Retrieve. They found her packing suitcases by the door. Lily's old baby photos stacked neatly. A printed map with our address circled in red. And one final note addressed to me. You can't erase me. The judge didn't hesitate. A permanent no-contact order, mandatory treatment, and a formal record that would follow her everywhere. When I heard, I sat down on the floor and cried, not from fear, but from the sudden release of it. Lily hugged me. Is she gone for good? She asked. Yes, I said. She can't reach us anymore. That night, Lily slept with her door wide open. No nightlight, no fear, just peace. Revenge didn't look like humiliation or shouting. It looked like boundaries enforced by truth. And Margaret? She lost the thing she wanted most. Control. With Margaret finally sidelined, life began to breathe again, slowly, carefully, like the first inhale after holding your breath underwater. But the aftermath wasn't as neat as I had imagined. Trauma doesn't leave quietly, especially for a child. Lily woke up screaming a few nights after the court ruling, tangled in her sheets, reaching for me before she realized I was already at her side. Her small hands clutched mine, trembling as though she was holding onto her own courage. I rubbed her back gently, whispering, "It's over, baby. You're safe now." Even as the words left my lips, I knew it wasn't enough. I called Lily's therapist first thing the next morning and scheduled longer sessions. Every afternoon after school, we carved out small rituals, homework together at the kitchen table, a short walk around the block, and then story time before bed. It was mundane, predictable, and exactly what safety looks like after chaos. Meanwhile, Denise worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Margaret's no-contact order was now permanent. Any attempt to contact us even indirectly would trigger criminal charges. She could no longer shadow Lily's school, park visits, or therapy sessions. She had no access to Keller, no one to feed her obsession, and no way to manufacture fear. Finally, Margaret had limits. For my part, I couldn't help but replay the moments at the mall, the black shoes, the soft male voice, Lily's grip tightening around my hand. That fear had been raw, unfiltered, and it had lit a fire inside me. I realized then that protection isn't passive, it's active. Boundaries aren't suggestions. They are rules enforced with vigilance and clarity, and now I knew exactly how to enforce them. Weeks turned into months. Lily's laughter began to fill the apartment again, unburdened by the shadow of surveillance. She spun in her blue dress at the park, her backpack swinging freely as she ran to meet friends. At school, she raised her hand without hesitation, offered her ideas, and didn't glance over her shoulder. Each small victory was a quiet triumph. Even our neighbors noticed. Valerie commented on how light the apartment felt when Lily ran past the hallway doors without hesitation. It wasn't dramatic, it was recovery. And it was happening in real time. One evening, as I tucked Lily in, she paused mid-story and said softly, "Mom, do you think Grandma Maggie knows she was wrong?" Her voice was calm, curious, not angry. I sat beside her, brushing her hair back. "I think she might understand someday, but understanding doesn't give her permission to hurt anyone." Lily nodded, satisfied, and drifted off to sleep with a smile. I sat by her side for a long time, holding her hand in mine, knowing this peace was fragile but finally ours. Margaret's obsession had been broken not with yelling, but with law, vigilance, and unshakable truth. That night, for the first time in months, I slept through the darkness, feeling what it meant to breathe freely. The nightmare had ended. The days that followed felt almost unreal, like we were living inside a dream we weren't sure we deserved. Lily was thriving, and the apartment felt lighter with her laughter bouncing off the walls. Every morning, she ran to the window, pointing out the birds and the squirrels as if rediscovering the world. And I realized that safety wasn't just a legal concept, it was emotional. Something you felt seep into your bones. One afternoon, we went to the park together, just the two of us. The swings squeaked under Lily's weight as she pumped her legs, laughing freely. I sat on the bench nearby, sipping lukewarm coffee, letting her joy wash over me. No eyes following, no whispers, no hidden cameras. For the first time, I felt like a mother without a shadow looming over us. Lily noticed my gaze and waved. "Mom, come push me." I smiled, leaving my coffee behind, and joined her, feeling the spring breeze brush past my face. It was ordinary, it was mundane, and yet it was revolutionary. Later that evening, as we prepared dinner together, Lily looked up at me with those wide, curious eyes. "Mom, can we plant basil again?" she asked, referencing the small balcony garden that had once belonged to David. I nodded, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in months. "Yes, honey. Let's make it the most beautiful basil patch ever." Our routines became rituals. Morning cartoons, school lunches meticulously packed, homework sessions filled with laughter rather than tension. Each day, Lily grew stronger, more confident, and I realized I had been rebuilding too. My grief had a place, but it no longer ruled our home. Instead, love, real, unburdened love, took center stage. One evening, Denise called to update me on Margaret. She was attending mandatory therapy sessions, and CPS reports had labeled her behavior as obsessive and controlling. Margaret's attempts at interference were documented, creating a record that would protect us permanently. She couldn't contact us, couldn't manipulate, and couldn't try again. Justice had its quiet victories, the kind that aren't televised but are felt deeply in the heart. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "Mom, I feel like nothing can scare me anymore." I kissed her forehead, feeling tears prick my eyes. "Not if we stay together," I said, "and not if we always speak the truth." I watched her drift to sleep, her chest rising and falling in even rhythms. The terror of the past weeks, the stalking, the PI, Margaret's obsession felt distant, like a storm we had survived together. I realized then that the real victory wasn't just the legal wins or the protective orders. It was reclaiming our sense of normalcy, our ability to breathe freely, and our right to live without fear. And somewhere in the quiet of that night, I whispered a silent promise to Lily: nothing, and no one, would ever steal her peace again. Spring was returning in full force, and with it came a sense of renewal I hadn't expected. The mornings were brighter, the air fresher, and Lily's laughter carried farther than ever. Each day felt like a step further from the shadow Margaret had cast over our lives. But healing, I learned, isn't linear. It came in waves, sometimes gentle, sometimes crashing hard. One Saturday, I took Lily to the library. She ran ahead, skipping between aisles, her blue dress catching the light from the windows. I followed slowly, savoring her joy. In the children's section, she dove into a pile of picture books while I scanned the shelves for novels I could lose myself in. It was quiet, peaceful, and it felt almost too good to be true. Then Lily looked up, holding a book about gardens. "Mom," she said, "can we plant more than basil this year? Flowers too?" Her excitement was contagious. I nodded, smiling. "Yes, let's make the balcony bloom. She squealed and hugged me tightly, the kind of hug that squeezes away the remnants of fear. That evening, we returned home, hands full of books and flowers. I helped Lily set up her small garden space, teaching her how to plant seeds just right, how to water without overdoing it, how to watch patiently as life emerges from soil. Each seed felt symbolic, a tiny act of reclaiming our life, piece by piece, from the control Margaret had tried to assert. As we worked, I noticed a sense of pride and confidence in Lily that hadn't been there before. She spoke freely about school, about friends, and even about the past. "Mom," she said softly, "I used to feel scared all the time, but now, I think I can handle anything." Her words hit me with a mix of relief and awe. The child who had clutched my hand in a mall bathroom, trembling with fear, was transforming into someone brave. Later that night, I reflected on our journey. Margaret's attempts to manipulate and control had failed, but more importantly, we had rebuilt ourselves from the inside out. Our boundaries were clear, our voices strong, and our bond unbreakable. The nightmares, the fear, the intrusion, they were now memories, not reality. I poured a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the city lights twinkle. The weight of months of tension was lifting. I realized that revenge isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about living well, reclaiming your life, and ensuring that those who try to harm you can't touch you again. Lily appeared in the doorway, sleepy but smiling. "Mom," she whispered, "can we read just one more story?" I nodded, pulling her onto my lap. As I read, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for safety, for love, and for the lessons we had learned through fear and courage. Margaret had tried to claim control, but we had claimed our peace. And this time, it was ours to keep. With Margaret's threat finally contained, I turned my attention to rebuilding the world around us. Life had been on pause for so long, every friend, every relative, every casual social outing shadowed by fear or caution. Slowly, I began inviting people back into our life, carefully, deliberately. Valerie was first. She came over with a basket of muffins and a warm smile, letting Lily lead the tour of her newly planted balcony garden. They laughed as petals fell into the soil, and I felt a sense of normalcy return that had been absent for months. Lily was relaxed, playful, her laughter no longer cautious or measured. Then came the neighborhood gatherings. I'd been hesitant to participate before, hyper-aware of every stranger, every interaction. But now, I could sit with a coffee in hand while Lily ran free among other children. I watched her make friends, her body language open and fearless. The terror she had once carried, the gripping fear of unseen eyes, was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence that warmed me from the inside. Even extended family visits became less fraught. Mike had been a quiet presence through the chaos, his hands steady, his attention thoughtful. Over time, we began sharing small moments outside of responsibility. Dinners, walks, even a movie night at home. Trust had to be earned in increments, and we took it slowly. Yet, with each interaction, our bond strengthened, proving that love and stability can grow even after betrayal and fear. One afternoon, as we worked together on a puzzle, Lily asked a question that stayed with me. "Mom," she said, eyes wide, "do you think Grandma will ever understand why she was wrong?" I paused, choosing my words with care. "I think some people never fully understand, honey. But that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that we know the truth and we protect ourselves." She nodded solemnly, then smiled, the weight of fear replaced by quiet certainty. School life also began to stabilize. Lily's teachers noticed the change. She raised her hand confidently, participated eagerly, and stopped worrying about who might be watching or judging her. Each accomplishment, no matter how small, felt like a victory over the past months of surveillance and control. At home, the balcony garden flourished. Basil, daisies, and tulips created a colorful sanctuary, a tangible reminder of growth, patience, and resilience. Lily would often sit beside me in the evenings, reading aloud as the sun set, petals brushing her arms, feeling safe and unhurried. Through all of it, I realized something profound. True revenge isn't about punishing others. It's about reclaiming your life, establishing boundaries, and nurturing the love that actually matters. Margaret's obsession had tried to fracture our family, but we had rebuilt stronger, wiser, and unbroken. Peace wasn't a distant hope anymore, it was real, tangible, and finally ours. Life had begun to settle into a rhythm I hadn't imagined possible. The weight that had pressed on every corner of our apartment, the fear, the suspicion, the tension was lifting. Slowly but surely, Lily ran through the rooms, her laughter bright and unguarded, a sound that once would have made me tense with anxiety. One Saturday, we took a long walk through the neighborhood park. Lily darted between the swings and slides, her blue dress catching the sunlight, spinning as though the world itself was hers. I followed at a measured pace, savoring every unhurried step, every innocent giggle. For the first time, I realized that safety isn't just about laws or orders, it's about presence, reassurance, and consistency. Mike joined us mid-afternoon, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. He smiled at me with that quiet, steady gaze that had carried us through the storm. Lily ran to him without hesitation, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Watching them together, I felt a surge of relief and gratitude. He hadn't overstepped. He hadn't tried to manipulate or control. He simply cared. And that made all the difference. Back home, we prepared dinner together. Lily chopped vegetables under my watchful eye, humming softly, while Mike set the table. The scent of simmering tomato sauce and fresh basil reminded me of David, of ordinary nights filled with laughter and comfort. Every small ritual, the meals, the garden, the bedtime stories, was now infused with intention and safety, a quiet rebellion against the chaos that had once threatened us. Later, as Lily drifted off to sleep, she whispered, "Mom, do you think Dad can see us?" I kissed her forehead, feeling the weight of months lift in a single heartbeat. "I think he can," I said softly, "and I think he'd be proud of how strong we are." She squeezed my hand and closed her eyes, finally unafraid. Margaret's attempts to control and dominate were over. The law had sided with truth. CPS had recorded every violation. Boundaries were established and respected. And yet, the greatest revenge wasn't punishment, it was life reclaimed. Every laugh, every step, every petal of basil growing on our balcony was proof that we were unbroken. Months later, spring returned in full bloom. The balcony garden flourished with basil, tulips, and daisies. Lily played freely in the sun, her laughter a daily affirmation of the peace we had fought for. Mike remained a steady presence, no longer a source of tension but a partner in parenting, rebuilding, and life. One quiet evening he proposed. No crowds, no spectacle, just the three of us in our living room. Petals falling like confetti from the balcony. Lily giggled as she scattered them across the floor, her smile radiant. I looked at both of them and felt it fully. The weight of fear had lifted. Justice had been served not through humiliation, but through vigilance, love, and the reclamation of our lives. For the first time, truly, we were free. The weeks after Mike's proposal brought a new kind of calm to our lives. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was subtle, like sunlight filtering through curtains in the early morning. Lily began to trust fully, without hesitation, and that trust reshaped everything. She ran ahead at school pickup, waved at friends without worry, and even talked about the past in small doses, her voice steady and matter-of-fact. The child who had once hidden in a mall bathroom stall was blossoming into someone fearless. At home, we established new routines, simple but powerful. Every evening, Lily and I tended the balcony garden, planting new flowers, checking on the basil, and watching tiny seedlings push through the soil. She hummed, told stories, and laughed freely. It was ordinary life, yet extraordinary in its tranquility. I realized that safety is measured not in arrests or court orders, but in the ability to breathe without fear, to love without hesitation, to exist without constant vigilance. Mike stayed by our side, quietly supportive. He no longer hovered, no longer asked intrusive questions. Instead, he helped when asked, offered advice when sought, and joined Lily in her small adventures without judgment. Trust, once fractured, was rebuilding slowly. And through it, I discovered a new depth in him, not just my late husband's brother, but a human capable of empathy, patience, and respect. One evening, Lily curled up beside me on the couch, her homework finished, the balcony garden glowing faintly with evening light. "Mom," she said softly, "do you think Grandma Maggie will ever understand that she was wrong?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. Some people never fully see their mistakes, honey, I said. But that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that we know the truth. And we protect ourselves. She nodded, a quiet determination settling in her small frame, before hopping off to finish reading by the window. Our apartment, once tense and shadowed, became a sanctuary. The walls echoed with laughter rather than fear. The kitchen smelled of simmering tomato sauce instead of worry. The balcony garden thrived, a symbol of growth, resilience, and life reclaimed. Every small ritual, every quiet victory, reminded me that Margaret's obsession had failed not because of confrontation alone, but because we refused to be controlled. The most striking change came in Lily herself. She no longer flinched at strangers, no longer hesitated to speak her mind, no longer carried the invisible weight of fear. Her confidence, curiosity, and joy became contagious, affecting everyone around her. For the first time in months, I realized I could live freely too, without hypervigilance, without suspicion, without constant dread. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "Mom, I think we're really safe now." I kissed her forehead, feeling the truth of it deep in my chest. "Yes, baby," I said softly. "We're finally safe, and no one can take that from us." The spring air carried a sense of possibility, a quiet reminder that life moves forward when fear is replaced by care and vigilance. Lily woke each morning with energy, skipping to the kitchen to help me make breakfast, humming songs she invented herself. The world, once a place of shadows and suspicion, had softened into something vibrant, safe, and alive. Watching her reclaim her childhood filled me with an emotional relief I hadn't known I was capable of feeling. Mike had become a steady presence without imposing. He no longer hovered or questioned every small decision. Instead, he became a partner in our life, helping Lily with school projects, fixing small things around the apartment, and sharing quiet moments without pressure or expectation. Slowly, I began to see him not just as David's brother or a family obligation, but as a person of genuine care, someone whose loyalty and patience had been unwavering through chaos. One afternoon, I received a call from Lily's school counselor. She wanted to meet to discuss Lily's progress. I expected a routine check-in, but what she shared surprised me. Lily had begun helping other children at recess, guiding them through games, comforting peers who were anxious, and speaking up when someone needed support. "She's thriving, Miss Catherine. You've done an incredible job." Hearing that, I felt a quiet swell of pride, not because of the recognition, but because Lily had transformed her fear into courage, her pain into empathy. At home, the balcony garden flourished more than ever. Basil, tulips, and daisies created a riot of color, their growth a tangible reminder that life continues even after fear. Lily spent hours tending it, experimenting with watering schedules, and sometimes just sitting quietly among the plants, reflecting in her own way. I realized that the garden had become more than decoration. It was a symbol of resilience and healing, a physical manifestation of the life we had fought to reclaim. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, Lily paused and looked at me with wide, serious eyes. "Mom," she whispered, "do you think Dad can see all of this?" I knelt beside her, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "I think he can, honey, and I know he's proud of us, proud of how strong we've been and how safe we've made our world." Her small hand squeezed mine, a silent affirmation of trust and love. Even as Margaret's presence faded from our lives, the lessons remained. Control disguised as care is still control. Love cannot be measured by surveillance or fear. The real victory wasn't punishment, it was reclaiming our peace, nurturing our bond, and allowing ourselves to live fully again. That night, I watched Lily sleep, the soft rise and fall of her chest a reminder that we had survived, endured, and triumphed. I realized that the strongest revenge is not vengeance, it's life lived boldly, freely, and with love intact. We were no longer victims, we were survivors, and we were finally free. By early summer, the rhythm of our lives had become steady, a calm counterpoint to the chaos that had once dominated our days. Lily's laughter echoed through the apartment, mixing with the scent of basil and tulips from the balcony garden. Each day brought ordinary victories: a school project completed, a small cooking experiment, a new friendship formed at the park. Life felt ordinary, yet extraordinary in its quiet triumph. Mike had settled into a new role, not an overseer, not an intruder, but a steady, dependable presence. He helped with Lily's homework, drove her to soccer practice, and shared stories of David from their childhood, helping keep his memory alive without overshadowing our new family life. I watched him interact with Lily, patient and gentle, and I realized that trust, once broken, could grow again, but only when boundaries were respected and intentions were pure. One weekend, we hosted a small gathering for friends and neighbors. It was the first time I'd felt comfortable inviting others into our homes since the incident with Margaret. Lily ran among the guests, shy at first, then increasingly confident, showing off her balcony garden and explaining which flowers were planted first. I watched from the kitchen doorway, sipping tea, and felt a profound sense of relief. We were reclaiming normalcy, reclaiming connection, reclaiming our lives. Margaret remained in the background, a cautionary tale rather than an active threat. CPS reports and court orders ensured she had no unsupervised access, no way to intrude or manipulate. And yet, the lessons lingered. I reminded myself and Lily that control disguised as love is never truly love. That safety is earned through boundaries, vigilance, and self-respect, not through fear or obedience. One evening, Lily came to me with a small notebook she had been keeping. Inside were drawings, little notes, and plans for the balcony garden. "Mom," she said, "I wrote down everything I want to do this summer. Flowers, reading, trips, nothing scary." Her words, simple and earnest, struck me deeply. The child who had once clutched my hand in terror in a mall bathroom was now planning her days, expressing herself freely, and trusting the world to hold her safe. Mike and I shared a quiet moment later that night, sitting on the balcony as the city lights shimmered. "We did it," he said softly. "We gave her back her childhood." I nodded, feeling the truth of it in my chest. "And we gave each other something too," I replied. "Trust, safety, a home free from fear." We had survived Margaret's obsession, the intrusive PI, and the manipulation of someone who disguised control as care. And now, as we looked toward the future, I understood that the most profound victory wasn't revenge, it was life reclaimed, peace restored, and the ability to love without hesitation. Our family, though scarred, was whole again. Summer was at its peak, and with it came a sense of rhythm and safety we hadn't known in months. Lily woke each morning eager to explore, her energy infectious. The city outside continued its usual hum, indifferent to the past shadows that had hovered over us. Yet inside our apartment, life was blooming in every corner. The balcony garden thrived, tomato plants heavy with fruit, tulips bright against the sunlight, and basil filling the air with its familiar scent. Each plant was a small triumph, a reminder of resilience and persistence. Mike had become a steady anchor in our lives. He no longer hovered or intruded, but his presence was constant, helping with homework, running errands, and occasionally sharing memories of David that brought smiles instead of sorrow. I noticed subtle shifts in Lily as well. She no longer flinched when unexpected visitors came to the door. She laughed freely with friends at the park, and she spoke confidently about school projects and daily plans. Fear had been replaced by a cautious but genuine trust. One evening, after dinner, Lily sat on the balcony with a notebook, sketching out ideas for new flowers and garden designs. "Mom," she said softly, "I want to grow something special this year, like the garden we planned for Dad." Her words carried a bittersweet weight, a reminder of what we had lost but also what we were rebuilding. I sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "We will," I whispered, "and every step we take makes this our world safe, beautiful, and ours." Evenings were our sanctuary. Mike and I often sat quietly, sharing tea, watching Lily read or play. These moments were unspoken affirmations of trust, of lives reclaimed from chaos. The city beyond our windows felt distant, irrelevant, a contrast to the warmth and safety of our apartment. We had survived Margaret's control, the intrusion of Hartman, and the constant threat of manipulation. What remained was intentional life, boundaries respected, love given freely, and peace established firmly. I reflected on the lessons that had been hard-earned. Love that demands obedience is not love. Concern that controls is not care. True strength lies in boundaries, vigilance, and resilience. Lily's laughter, curiosity, and independence were proof that safety is a gift, one that must be nurtured and protected. That night, I tucked Lily into bed. Her small hand squeezed mine as she whispered, "Mom, I feel brave now." I kissed her forehead, feeling a swell of pride and relief. "You're brave, baby," I said, "and nothing can take that away." Outside the window, the city lights shimmered, but inside, our world was whole. We had endured, we had healed, and the past no longer controlled our present. Freedom, safety, and love, these were our victories, earned through persistence, courage, and unwavering care. The first snow of winter fell quietly over the city, blanketing streets and rooftops in soft white. It was a season of reflection, of endings and new beginnings. Inside our apartment, warmth and laughter filled the spaces that fear once haunted. Lily built towers of blocks and giggled at her own silly stories, while I prepared hot cocoa, watching the steam curl into the air like a small promise of safety. For the first time in months, the shadows felt gone, not just outside. Mike had become more than just a presence. He was a partner, a protector, a steady hand in the currents of our lives. He no longer hovered or pried, no longer used David's memory as leverage. Instead, he offered quiet guidance, shared stories of our past without intrusion, and celebrated the ordinary victories with us. Together, we navigated daily life, school events, grocery trips, weekend walks without the ever-present tension of suspicion. Lily's laughter confirmed what I already knew. Trust, when earned and respected, could rebuild what fear had nearly destroyed. Our apartment had transformed into a sanctuary. The balcony garden thrived despite the cold, a symbol of resilience. Basil, tulips, and daisies grew alongside tiny seedlings Lily planted herself. Each leaf, each blossom, felt like a declaration. Life continues, even after darkness. Even the small rituals, the scent of simmering tomato sauce, bedtime stories, quiet coffee on the balcony became affirmations of survival and love reclaimed. One evening, Lily curled up beside me with her notebook, filled with sketches and plans for the garden and for her school projects. "Mom," she said softly, "I feel safe now, really safe." I brushed a strand of hair from her face, my chest swelling with relief. "Yes, baby," I whispered. "Nothing can take that away from us. Not fear, not control, not anyone." She smiled, her small hand gripping mine, a silent pact of trust and hope. Margaret's interference had ended definitively. Protective orders, supervised visitation, and legal oversight ensured she could no longer threaten our lives. The real victory, however, wasn't legal, it was the freedom we had restored. Fear had been replaced by confidence, uncertainty by control, and pain by a quiet, persistent love that anchored us. Weeks later, Mike proposed quietly, right in our living room, with petals from the balcony garden scattered around us. Lily giggled, tossing flowers in the air, her joy uncontainable. In that moment, I understood fully. The ultimate revenge wasn't punishment or humiliation, it was life reclaimed, hearts healed, and love restored. As we embraced, I felt the full weight of survival and triumph. We had endured terror, manipulation, and loss. We had fought, protected, and nurtured what mattered most. Our family was whole again, not because of anger or vengeance, but because we refused to let control, fear, or grief define our lives. We were free, and that freedom was the sweetest, most enduring victory of all.